Thank you to Ms. Martinez-Johnson for that interview. You can watch our full candidate conversations online on the New Mexico in Focus YouTube page. Now, welcome back to our panelists for this week. We're going to dive right into the new standardized test scores that show New Mexico remains at the bottom of the country in several key areas. Now, compared to 2019, fourth grade reading proficiency dropped 3 points to 21%, and math proficiency fell 10 points to 19%. Those are startling numbers and keep us at 50th in the country in those areas. But given the impact of the pandemic, nearly every state in the union saw it fall off. Leah, how concerned should we be about this new data?
Well, for one, it was expected. So we have to keep that in mind. These kids specifically, they were highlighting, some reports were highlighting fourth and eighth graders. And when you think about that, those kids were in first grade and fifth grade at the beginning of the pandemic. So it's not surprising that these kids are lacking or falling behind. Also, New Mexico has been at or toward the bottom of, the education ladder for quite a while. And, at this point, it's disappointing, but it's also, well, there's New Mexico, and which is sad. We want to see much more improvement and, hopefully going forward with more investments. I know that there's been so many investments pre-K through college. At this point, I think we just have to sort of wait and see how that money gets into the system, is used, and then maybe we'll see some improvements in the coming years.
I appreciate you saying that. New Mexico Secretary of Education Kurt Steinhaus made a similar comment. A couple things New Mexico is doing right. It will show improvement. It's not going to happen in a week. It's going to take a couple of years. That's interesting that you buttressed that point there. Tom, at the state's largest district, which is Albuquerque Public Schools, stayed about the same. That's interesting. What does that say about students in more rural areas where perhaps remote learning was more difficult, if not impossible for a time?
Yeah, I think what we see with the Albuquerque Public Schools compared to the rest of the state, and even Santa Fe, Rio Rancho schools, Los Alamos schools, Las Cruces schools, is, the districts were already set up from a technological perspective, right? They were able to use technology to their advantage, whereas the rural districts perhaps were not as equipped. I don't have any firsthand experience with, how the different districts around the state are addressing technology, but I think that's probably one of the items, as far as Albuquerque being ahead of everybody else to just remain even, is because technology was already integrated into the education system. I think one of the things that this report really highlights, as is mentioned in several of the items that we've seen in preparing for this conversation today, is that the pandemic era, it really only reinforced New Mexico's deficiencies. Right. So I'm kind of eager to hear what is that path forward, other than do better, which we hope that everybody will. I'm kind of curious to know, how are we going to provide better support to the teachers and to the communities where they are? Because having a one size fits all, which is the criticism of some of the standardized testing, but having a one size fits all curriculum for students throughout the state, is good to an extent, but you really need to come up with localized solutions to help the teachers and the school communities to really address the areas where there are deficiencies.
Yeah, good point there. Sophie also brings into question students identified in the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit. Because across the board, those student groups lagged behind their national and statewide peers, probably more importantly. They also almost all had lower scores this year than in 2019, with a few exceptions. Is it fair to blame those shortcomings on the pandemic too, or is this, like Tom mentioned, just a continuation?
Well, it's compounded, right? And
Gotcha.
And it's worth noting, Gene, and I appreciate you bringing the Yazzie Martinez, the students affected or included in that lawsuit, into this conversation. That's a large portion of our school age kids in this state. That's not, I think sometimes that gets lost. That's is it something like 70%? I don't know
Yes,
if
it
you remember
is.
off the top of your head. Yeah,
70%,
of kids in our schools. And so that's a huge group. And the issues that were identified in that lawsuit didn't just sort of get waved away with a magic wand. It's an ongoing process. Now, we talked at this table, I guess it's a table still, a little while ago about progress that the public education department has identified that they've made in furtherance of their compliance with the Yazzie Martinez, decision. But it's still a kid is not like replacing the battery in your car. It's not like you turn on a light switch. A kid and groups of kids take time to, even if you start right away, take time to improve their reading scores, to improve their math scores, to make other changes that will impact their learning. And it really does feel to me that we're very much at the beginning of that. Then layered on top of that, the pandemic and the inequities that we saw in access to educational resources because of the pandemic just makes that a much more difficult job. I know that we are all worried about all of those kids who are in school.
That's right.
And how we will catch them up, because it is very much our obligation, I think, as a community to do that.
That's right. Leah, speaking of the governor, the scores come out as the governor and public education department announced new investments to expand tutoring for math and reading and science. In that, the program would target K through 8th graders at priority schools. Just one of the pieces of the puzzle, certainly, but could it have a tangible impact, and how soon?
I mean, that's a tough one. Determining how soon, I'm not sure, but I do think that added sort of outside tutoring is definitely going to make a difference. But I think it's also going to depend on the kid.
Right.
It takes different kids at different levels, different amounts of time to grasp information, and I'm only 6 years removed from the New Mexico public education system. And, kids in my class were, there were kids behind, there were kids ahead. That's just how it goes. So I think it's really going to depend on the kid. But I think it's a step in the right direction.
Yep. Tom, we've had an educational funding item on the ballot, Constitutional Amendment 1. If passed, it would divert more money from the Land Grant Permanent Fund to be used in early childhood and public ed. Now, opponents say we need to keep saving that money, of course, before we take more out, but polls show it's likely to pass. The fundamental question here, is money the answer to pulling us out of this?
No, it is not. And that's not an endorsement or a non-endorsement for that particular issue. But the issues that are being faced by the New Mexico educational system are not purely financially based. And you can make that argument by looking at the current allotment of money that goes towards public education. It's a systemic issue that really needs to be fixed. Back during my very brief tenure with the Albuquerque Public Schools, there was, I quickly learned that the best sixth grade reading, the best third grade reading programs were actually in the sixth grade because, there was so much catch up that needed to take place. And so, we're seeing, probably now that it's fourth and eighth grade, I shudder to think that the best fourth grade reading programs are in the eighth grade. But, I think that there's just a systemic issue that needs to be addressed, and it's not at a statewide level, it's at a school district by district level.
That's a good point too. Sophie, can I get you to pick up on that same point that Tom just made? Is where do we go from here, basically, is the question.
Well, I mean, it's a question the entire country is asking at this point, right? With the results, you look around the country and everybody is reeling from this.
Yep.
I think that there are promising programs that are in place in New Mexico that need time. They probably also do need more funding. I mean, to Tom's point, you don't just throw money at it. But one of the things that's tough in our political environment is every however many years, we have the potential for the current program to be scrapped, thrown away, and a new program put in its place. And kids can't afford to have that happen. They need the continuity, and we need the time to make sure that these programs are correctly and fully implemented, and then to determine whether or not they worked. So, I mean, I think one of the real challenges, this isn't me saying like, it has to be this person in office or that person in office forever, but it would certainly be helpful if our state could make a commitment as a whole to keeping the good programs going and to continuing to fund them appropriately.
That's a fair point. Absolutely. Hey, thanks again to our Line panel as always. Now, be sure to let us know what you think about any of the topics the Line covered on our Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram pages, and catch any episodes you may have missed on the PBS Video app and on your Roku or smart TV.